So Tom, what's the role of open source in all this? Because it seems to play a big role in a lot of these new models.
Yeah, so I think on open source there's two perspectives. I think the use of open source in general in most enterprises is becoming more and more accepted and increasing within the environment. And then secondly, even commercial software, you find today that as much as 60+% of the code that goes into any commercial application can be different open source components that are brought together to deliver the end commercial title. So what that means is really it creates a challenge on both sides of the supply chain. From a supplier perspective, they need to make sure they understand what they're putting into their code, they're using it correctly, and they're adhering to the agreements on their side. But on the enterprise side, if you take a step back and think about it from a supply chain perspective, we think the requirement for more of a bill of materials kind of a manifest is going to be needed as software is supplied. You think about any goods you go buy in a supermarket. On the back of there's a set of ingredients. You can see very clearly what's inside that. If there's a breakdown in those goods, they have a recall. They know what's inside what. They know exactly what they need to go gather and bring it back off the shelf. If you parallel that to a vulnerability in open source from a software perspective, it's very, very difficult today for organizations to figure out which products have those open source components inside. How should I react? How severe is this for me? So really that's one of the major things that we see as open source becomes more adopted, more prevalent, is again more of a supply chain type approach where the contents, the bill of materials is understood clearly at the supply side and it's passed all the way down to the consumption side. So at any point in time, it's very, very easy to see what's there from an open source perspective.
No, that's a great point. Vulnerabilities are the equivalent to a recall. How would you do that? How would you make it explainable? And more importantly, how do people work with that?
Exactly. And I think if you take it one step further, we were talking Internet of Things and devices. The genuine risk in the world is going up significantly. Today you think about software, maybe there's compliance risk, maybe there's business risk, but as software is beginning to run real devices, cars, machines, entire factories, the chance of an outage or a risk really creates genuine risk, much like in an industrial supply chain.